I am the vicious villain in a redemption story, less than 30 years old. Yet I have already done every bad deed imaginable, and made countless enemies. However, unlike in the original story, not only did I not bully the male and female leads, I even became a simp for the female lead, Willow, because of that. Not only did I work hard doing dirty work for the Liu family during the day, but at night I also worked hard serving Willow Liu. What I never expected, however, was that after the male lead, Makoto, returned to the country, Willow suddenly began keeping her distance from me. Maybe it's true that villains eventually get what's coming to them. A week ago, I was diagnosed with a terminal illness. Only then did the system finally show up. At first I thought it could save my life, help me smash those scumbags and turn my life around. But instead it cleared its throat and said, "You have to die at the female lead's hands in order to completely leave this world." I was speechless. Chapter 1. By the time the system found me, the story was already nearing its end. It said, "You are the vicious villain." I lit a cigarette and sat on the balcony, thinking, not even 30 years old, yet I've done every terrible thing imaginable, and made enemies everywhere. I slowly exhaled a puff of smoke, lowered my eyes, and curled my lips. As for the title, Vicious Villain, me, George, I deserve it completely. The system sounded a little guilty as it continued. Although I came late, by sheer coincidence, you still created quite a few obstacles between Willow and Makoto. I froze for a moment, then burst out laughing. Willow, the female lead, Makoto, the male lead, and me, the villain. But instead of bullying and humiliating the male lead, I clung desperately to the female lead. The smoke stung my eyes. I flicked the ash from my cigarette and asked, "They're about to get married. What do you still need me for? I don't have many days left anyway." Maybe villains really do get what they deserve. I only got the medical report a week ago. A terminal illness. Late stage of the late stage. The doctor's exact words were that treatment would have little meaning. The system paused before saying, "Your ending was predetermined long ago, but only by dying at Willow's hands can you completely leave this world." Die at Willow's hands. I savored those words and laughed until I choked. My voice turned hoarse for no reason. "There's nothing difficult about that," I said. "Willow hates me to death." Chapter 2. I was called a bastard ever since I was a child, because I didn't have a father, and my mother was beautiful. People said all kinds of things. Every time I heard it once, I fought once. Bruises on my face every few days, that was nothing. The hard part was that my mom's salary wasn't enough to cover the medical bills, so she would cry and beg me, telling me to endure it. "If you can just get into a good school somewhere else, things will be better." So I listened to her. I studied hard and got into the best high school in the province. The outside world really was different. That's where I got to meet someone like Willow, bright and dazzling, gentle and kind, like a sacred white moon hanging in the sky. On my 17th birthday, I made a wish. I wanted to keep walking forward until I reached a place where the moonlight could shine on me too. Less than a year later, a subtle understanding began to grow between us. At least, that's what I believed. I was almost an adult. My mom said she would come to the provincial capital to celebrate my birthday with me. After hanging up the phone, I began to look forward to it. I wondered what flavor the cake would be. Late at night, I finally received a call, but the one speaking wasn't her. It was the police. They said my mother had been hit by someone street racing. She died on the spot. I spent my 18th birthday in the morgue. The cake mixed with blood looked like my mother's blurred face. When I tasted it, it was bitter. Bitter in my heart. Bitter in my stomach. No matter what, I couldn't swallow it. Something cold spread across my face, but the hand covering my eyes was warm. She said, "George, I made a wish for you." I asked blankly, "What wish?" Willow sighed softly and hugged me from behind. "George," she said, "may you leave suffering behind and find happiness." Chapter 3. I laughed. I laughed until tears came out. Leaving suffering behind and finding happiness. That's really hard. The person who killed my mother, what a coincidence, was my half-brother. Turns out I did have a father. He told me, "We're all family." Your brother didn't mean it. Family. My brother. Every single word made me want to laugh. Martin drove a brand new car to my school to find me. He pointed at the license plate that started with 0 and laughed. "Even if we ignore the family connection, what can you possibly do to me?" Indeed, there was nothing I could do. All I could do was endure his threats and insults. On the night the college entrance exam ended, Martin came to my rented apartment. He kicked me to the ground and cursed. "You filthy bastard. You never even did a paternity test. My dad says something and you actually believe it. If you know what's good for you, get the hell out of our lives." I stared at the ceiling. It just felt ridiculous. So what else am I supposed to do if I don't believe him? I said. I watched him rage in fury. Watched him smash my mother's memorial photo. Watched him grab my collar and haul me up. Then he took a deep breath. His fist slammed into my face. My knife plunged into his heart. The sharp ringing of a phone kept echoing. The door of the rented apartment was pushed open. The foul-smelling blood crawled over my body like a crimson venomous snake. I laughed softly, numbly pressing down on that filthy, lifeless thing. I pulled out the dagger and raised it again. But no matter what, I couldn't bring myself to stab a second time. Willow. Spotless, untouchable Willow. She hugged me, covered in blood and filth. She took me home and told me to shower. She leaned beside me as I rambled endlessly. I asked her, "Will you come visit me in prison?" She smiled gently and shook her head. "No," she said. "George, you have to go to college with me." Willow went to old Master Lou and begged him to protect me, but the old man said he wanted to meet me alone. The conversation went quite well. He spared my life, and in return, I secretly became Willow's blade. Chapter 4. I still didn't get to attend college with Willow. The first 2 years were closed. Intensive training. For the remaining 2 years, I got my hands into every one of the Lou family's shady businesses. The night we reunited after graduation, Willow said I had changed. I laughed while catching my breath and asked, "How have I changed?" Willow didn't answer. Her fingertips trembled slightly as they slowly traced the scars across my body, inch by inch. Hot tears kept falling onto my shoulder. Sometimes, I really wish I were a real blade. That way, my mother, and now Willow as well, wouldn't cry because of the wounds I carry. I forced out a smile and kissed her damp eyelashes, awkwardly trying to comfort her. "Don't be sad, Willow." At the very least, George had gotten what he wished for. Over the next 2 years, we did everything lovers would do. 2 years after that, the Lou family gained absolute authority in a city. After Willow, Lou inherited the family business. Someone jokingly asked old Master Lou, "Where did you find such a loyal mad dog for Willow?" The old man simply smiled and said, "Willow once did him a great favor." That was true. I kept reminding myself of that favor, replaying it again and again in my mind, just to offset Willow's growing coldness. Chapter 5. I can't remember exactly when Willow started distancing herself from me, but looking back, it probably had something to do with her childhood friend who returned after finishing his studies abroad. My assistant, Alicia, reminded me that kind of person was called a crush. Oh, so the woman I had a crush on had a crush of her own. Then what about me? I grabbed her shoulders and asked. She looked at me, her expression distant, and asked in return, "What exactly is the relationship between you and me?" "What relationship?" I repeated those words in my mind. Gradually, I began to laugh, laughing until my chest hurt. Right. On the surface, I was her assistant. Privately, we had never defined our relationship. I shook my head with a bitter smile and spoke with difficulty. "If we really have to define it, I'm nothing more than a tool for you, right?" Willow frowned but said nothing. I grabbed her wrist, forced a kiss onto her lips, and said through clenched teeth, "Willow, I'm the kind of person who always takes revenge. There's no way I'm letting this go." From then on, Willow stopped seeing me. It didn't matter. I made sure to disrupt every meeting she had with Makoto. The way Willow looked at me gradually changed, from indifference to disgust. One day, Makoto was kidnapped, and Willow rushed to deliver the ransom. But the kidnapper's real target was her. When the gun was pointed at Willow, I instinctively threw myself forward to shield her. The moment I fell to the ground with her in my arms, the kidnapper fired a second shot. The bullet hit my right leg. After the danger passed, Willow's hands were still trembling as she held my head. Then someone called her name. Willow immediately snapped out of it, pushed me away, and hurried over to help that person up. When Willow walked past me with Makoto on her arm, I was still lying on the ground. For a moment, I couldn't even tell where the pain was coming from. Looking at her back as she left, I called out stubbornly, "Willow, if you don't come back for me, I'm not leaving." The first time I ever threatened Willow, I didn't have much confidence. My voice trembled on the last few words. Willow heard me. Her steps paused for a moment, but she didn't stop. I looked away, closed my eyes, and let out a self-mocking smile. Chapter 6. I still went to the hospital, just a little too late. I almost had my leg amputated. After I was discharged, I had someone kidnap Makoto. Only then did Willow finally agree to see me. I threw away my crutch. Every step I took toward her sent piercing pain through my body. Willow looked at my pale lips and didn't refuse my embrace. Just like that, she fell into my arms without any defense. I imprisoned Willow. I forced her to look at no one but me every moment. I forced her to cut herself off from the outside world, to forget Makoto. I tried to tear open that cold, distant shell of hers, and pour my pain into the heart that once beat against mine. I asked, "Who am I?" "George." I laughed bitterly and bit her lips, bit until there was blood, bit until there were tears. Then I asked, "Then are you still Willow?" Again and again, the way Willow looked at me changed, from anger to sorrow. she said. George, you've changed. I gripped her chin and laughed hoarsely. How have I changed? Willow pressed her lips together and didn't answer, but I insisted on prying them open. Anger was fine. Hatred was fine. What I hated was indifference. For a brief moment, there seemed to be a different emotion in her eyes, but it vanished just as quickly. Willow's breathing grew rapid, her chest rising and falling sharply. The next second, she suddenly flipped over and took control. Her waist moved wildly, as if accusing me with a storm of hatred. In the end, she looked at me with disdain and said coldly, "Are you satisfied now?" My face pale, I slowly curled my lips and pushed her away. After she walked into the bathroom to shower, I turned my head and spat out a mouthful of blood. I wiped my mouth and lay back down again. My chest felt empty. Satisfied? Not really. But if I wasn't satisfied, what could I do? I raised my hand and covered the glaring light. George's days were almost over. Chapter 7. Looking back on the life of this vicious villain of mine, took only 3 cigarettes. I played with the lighter in my hand and suddenly remembered that fleeting look in Willow's eyes. So I asked, "Tell me, did Willow fall in love with Makoto because the plot forced her to, or was it her own choice?" The system was silent for 2 seconds before answering. "Does it matter? No matter what happens between Willow and Makoto, you and Willow could never have had a good ending. She shouldn't have saved you in the first place." I curled my lips and slowly nodded. "Yeah, that makes sense." The system continued. "You and the protagonists were supposed to be mortal enemies, but because she once saved you, you now carry a karmic debt toward her. If you die naturally, then when Willow eventually dies of old age and the world resets, you will be dragged back again to participate in her karmic cycle. So you must die at her hands in order to completely leave this world." After a pause, the system added, "Of course, the final choice is still yours." That last remark actually made me laugh. "So what do you think I'll choose?" I asked. The system fell silent. I wanted to laugh again, but suddenly my stomach twisted with violent pain. I curled into the chair and rested for a while before reaching for the cigarette pack on the table. The next second, the lighter in my hand was confiscated. A female voice snapped, "You don't eat, you don't take your medicine, and you still smoke all day. How are you supposed to get better like this?" I slowly turned around and saw Alicia looking like she was about to cry from anger. No, she was already crying, wiping her tears with her sleeve. I sighed helplessly, pushed myself up with the armrest, and handed her a few tissues. "Did you finish what I asked you to do?" I asked. Alicia blew her nose and replied in a muffled voice, "Yeah, just like you instructed. All the work has been handed over, but your resignation letter?" "Miss Liu, Willow, she refused to approve it." I raised an eyebrow. "Her reason?" On the letter I had only written one sentence. "I want to go out and travel for a while." Alicia frowned. "Willow said she'll give you a nominal position, with the same pay and benefits, and it won't interfere with your travels." I nodded thoughtfully and held out my hand to her. "Give me the lighter back." Alicia immediately hid her hands behind her back and glared. I chuckled, sitting back down in the chair, cigarette between my fingers. I tilted my head slightly and looked at her. The girl held out for a while, but in the end she was still a little afraid of me. Reluctantly, she placed the lighter back in my hand. I closed my fingers around it. With a flick of my wrist, the cigarette in my mouth disappeared. In the blink of an eye, the cigarette pack on the table disappeared too. Alicia grabbed them and ran. She shouted, "I brought you food, remember to eat it." I laughed in exasperation, too tired to shout after her. "I just called her phone," she answered. "What do you?" I cut her off. "Help me pass a message to Willow." "Okay, what should I say?" I lowered my head, rubbing the engraved words on the lighter. Then I said, "Tell her this. Please personally deliver my transfer notice to my house." Chapter 8. I waited 3 days. Willow finally rang my doorbell. I welcomed her in and invited her to sit. While pouring her some tea, I chatted in a casual tone. "How are the wedding preparations going? Do you need my help?" Willow frowned as she looked at me, as if she didn't recognize me. I let out a small laugh and handed her a cup of tea. "Want to try it? It's a special reserve I picked out." Willow didn't even look at it. A flash of irritation crossed her eyes. She said, "You've lost a lot of weight." I raised an eyebrow, took a sip of tea, and deliberately teased her. "Yeah, I miss you so much that I can't eat or sleep." Just as I expected. Willow's frown relaxed immediately, but her expression quickly turned cold again. She placed the document envelope on the table, and turned to leave. I said, "Hey, wait." I stood up and reached out to stop her. Willow lifted her arm and shoved me aside, but now I only have one good leg. So I couldn't resist the push. I staggered back 2 steps and fell to the ground. The noise was quite loud. Willow turned around. She rolled her eyes and said, "You don't actually think I'll still fall for your tricks, do you?" I remained silent for a moment, and then let out a soundless laugh. I didn't even bother getting up. Sitting on the floor was fine too. I spoke slowly. Do you hate me? Willow didn't answer. She turned and walked toward the door. With a dull clatter, a pistol fell at her feet. I said, if you hate me, I'll give you a chance right now. Shoot me and kill me once and for all. After 2 seconds, she turned and looked down at me. Her eyes were filled with nothing but coldness. As if she were looking at a madman. I smiled and continued. If you don't hate me, then do me a favor. I'm sick. The pain is so unbearable that I want to die. Considering that I've been your tool for so many years, could you give me a quick death? When I finished speaking, Willow crouched down, picked up the pistol, and looked at me coldly. She said, if you're sick, go get treatment. With another sharp sound, she threw the pistol onto the table. Then she added, do you want me to call a doctor for you? After a moment of silence, I curled my lips slightly and waved my hand. I'm already receiving treatment. Get out. Chapter 9. With a soft click, the door closed. I was still sitting on the floor. At the end of my sight was the spot where Willow had been standing. Little by little, it was swallowed by darkness. Night had fallen. Another day of life. I lay flat on my back on the floor and slowly stretched out my hand. For a moment, it felt as if I had touched the 18-year-old Willow. I said, tell me, why did she save me that day? I don't know. Maybe she thought you were pitiful. The system replied after a pause. Well, back then you really did look pitiful. I blinked slowly and said helplessly. Then, today she didn't kill me because she also feels sorry for me. The system remained silent for a long time before speaking. I think she doesn't actually hate you. She just doesn't love you anymore. So she wouldn't do something that would take your life. I sighed and closed my eyes tiredly. Then tell me, what do I need to do to be completely free? After waiting for a long time, the system replied, there is another way. What is it? Finish it the same way it began. If back then she had let you die, none of the things that happened between you afterward would have occurred. So, if you commit suicide in front of her, and she lets you die without saving you, the chain of causality will return to the beginning, and you won't owe her anything anymore. I opened my eyes, somewhat doubtful. And if she saves me again? The system fell silent for a moment. Then it said, then make a bet. Chapter 10. Willow arranged a position for me as an honorary director. It's honestly pretty relaxed. I can lie at home and still earn over $1 million a year. But I can't just lie around. Every day I still have to take Leather Jack out for a walk. Let me clarify something first. I'm not crazy. Leather Jack is a Labrador that weighs over 100 pounds. I picked him up on the way back after the first time I finished doing dirty work for the Lou family. The reason I picked him up was simple. He bit onto my pant leg. At the time my hands were covered in blood, so it wasn't convenient to carry him. So I took off the leather jacket I was wearing and wrapped him in it. After I brought him home, he kept dragging that leather jacket over to use as bedding for his nest. It amused me so much that I simply named him Leather Jack. In the blink of an eye, almost 8 years have passed. Leather Jack has entered his old age too. At the beginning of the year, when I celebrated his birthday, I even whispered in his ear, hang in there, Leather Jack, stay with me a little longer. Now it seems I'm the one who'll have to break that promise. Back when I was still risking my life for the Lou family, I used to wonder, if one day I suddenly died, who should I entrust Leather Jack to? What did Willow say back then? While mixing the dog food, she sulked and said, why don't you think about what I'm supposed to do? That night, after an intense and satisfying round in bed, Willow lay in my arms and whispered next to my ear. It sounded like both a promise and a vow. She said, if one day you suddenly disappear, I'll find Leather Jack a good home. Then I'll come find you. Thinking about it now, everything that happened feels like a dream. Chapter 11. The painkillers have already stopped working on me. Before I completely lose the ability to look like a normal person, I need to hurry up and make my will. I've already decided where Leather Jack will go. Alicia is a genuinely kind-hearted girl. When the time comes, Leather Jack can take my inheritance to her. She'll definitely spoil him so much he forgets he ever had an owner. There's one more thing. Willow avoids me like I'm the plague now, so I need to think of a good reason to ask her to see me. It would be best if we could sit down and talk properly one more time. But after thinking for a long time, I still couldn't come up with a suitable excuse. Just when I was worrying about it, Alicia rushed into my house excitedly. She said, boss, your birthday is in 2 days. You never celebrate it, but this year we have to. We still have to eat longevity noodles, so that next year you'll be safe and healthy. The more Alicia spoke, the quieter she became. Her eyes were already red. After listening to her, I smiled helplessly. I will celebrate it this year, but I already have plans. Next year we'll celebrate together. The tears Alicia had been holding back suddenly fell. You said it, boss, next year on your birthday. I'll celebrate it for you. Next year. for me, is impossibly far away. Alicia understands that. Yet she still wants a promise from me. I nodded with a smile and handed her a tissue. All right, next year you'll celebrate it for me. After Alicia left, I took out my phone. My fingertip hovered over the pinned number at the top of my contacts for a long time. In 2 days, March 27th. It's my birthday. It's also the anniversary of my mother's death. Now the only person who still remembers that is Willow. During the 4 years she was in college, I didn't celebrate my birthday. Later, when we lived together, I still didn't celebrate it, but Willow remembered. When that day came, she would sneak over before I woke up, holding 2 boiled eggs. Starting from my forehead, she would slowly roll them down to my feet, while murmuring softly, "Roll the illness away, roll the good luck in." After rolling them twice, she would mischievously kiss me and say, "All right, the good luck is sealed. George has to keep growing well." She never said happy birthday, but every word she spoke was filled with a blessing. Later on, she moved out, and I returned to how things used to be. Every March 27th, I would go to the cemetery and spend the day with my mother. Now this is the last March 27th I'll ever have. This time, I want to stay home and pass it warmly. The thumb hovering above the screen finally pressed down. While waiting for the call to connect, I cleared my throat. After 7 or 8 rings, a distant female voice answered. "What is it?" Willow asked. I paused for a moment and said politely, "Do you have time right now?" Silence came from the phone. It was obvious Willow didn't want to talk to me. Maybe I was already annoying her. I chuckled and continued speaking on my own. "The day after tomorrow is my birthday. Do you want to have a meal with me?" Willow still didn't say anything. I sighed and spoke sincerely. "I promise, after this meal, I'll behave myself from now on and work obediently for the Liu family." "All right." After a while, Willow finally spoke. "Get better first." I froze for a moment, then couldn't help laughing. Then I heard her ask, "What time?" I stopped laughing. "After you get off work," I said. Okay. Chapter 12. On my birthday. I wanted to tidy myself up a little. The suits no longer fit me. After searching for a long time, I chose a gray hoodie with matching sweatpants. The loose fit didn't make me look like a skeleton. While fixing my hair in front of the mirror, it suddenly occurred to me that today's outfit looked a bit like the one I wore the first time I took the initiative to greet Willow. But when I looked closer, it didn't seem the same at all. Back then, George's eyes were bright. Now, George looks like a faded photograph. Whatever. Too lazy to change. At least it's comfortable. I made a meal for Leather Jack, watched him finish eating, then packed a backpack full of snacks for him and took him to Alicia's house. The moment Alicia saw me, she blurted out, "Boss, you look really handsome today." I snorted. "What? Wasn't I handsome before?" She immediately shook her head, pressing her lips together. The smile in her eyes shimmered through tears. "Boss, today you're especially handsome. You look like a college student, full of energy." I laughed, ruffling her hair. "Did you forget to say something to me?" Alicia quickly wiped her eyes, stepped forward, and gave me a hug. "Happy birthday." I lifted one hand and lightly patted her back. "Thank you." After leaving Alicia's house, I went to the cemetery to visit my mother. It felt like I had barely said a few words before the afternoon had already arrived. Time to go home. I had promised to treat Willow to dinner, so I still needed to prepare a couple of proper dishes. Braised pork ribs, stuffed green peppers with minced meat, tomato shrimp soup, all dishes Willow had cooked before. I loved these 3, so she used to make them often. Because she made them often, I ate them often, which means now I can roughly recreate them myself. At 6:20 p.m., the 2 dishes and 1 soup were ready. The cake I ordered had also arrived. I poured 2 glasses of red wine and sat at the dining table waiting. The second hand circled around again and again. 7:15. The doorbell finally rang. Willow was wearing a custom-made evening gown and an exquisite necklace. She had probably just rushed over from some banquet. I didn't go forward to greet her. I was busy reheating the dishes. When the food was placed back on the table, Willow sat down across from me. I couldn't help but laugh softly. I moved the extra set of chopsticks and the wine glass beside me over to her side. "Go ahead and eat," I said. "It's not as good as what you cook, but it's not bad." Willow glanced at the dishes on the table and said calmly, "I've already eaten." My hand paused in the middle of picking up food. I looked up and teased, "Are you sure you won't eat? If you ever want to taste my cooking again, you might not get another chance." Willow sat upright without moving. "I don't need to." I raised an eyebrow slightly and put my chopsticks down as well. Lifting my wine glass, I smiled. "Won't you wish me a happy birthday?" Willow looked at me, expressionless. "Happy birthday." I shook my head. She looked as if someone had a knife at her throat. Seeing her pick up the wine glass, I lazily said, "I drugged it." Willow paused and lifted her eyes coldly. I set down my glass and leaned back in my chair. tilting my head slightly as a slow smile appeared. Sorry, I remembered wrong. My finger tapped lightly on the rim of the glass. The one with the poison is actually mine. Willow's expression didn't change. She still put the wine glass back down. After a moment of silent eye contact, I picked up my own glass and took a sip. In my mind echoed the system's words. What if she saves you again? I asked. Willow, if I told you I put poison in my own glass, would you save me? Willow simply looked at me calmly. Her expression was indifferent, like a proper spectator. I gave a bitter smile. Back then, you used to believe everything I said. She tilted her head slightly, brushing her hair behind her ear, and replied lightly. I did believe you. I looked up just in time to catch the flash of impatience in her eyes. Suddenly, I understood. She still remembered that time when I pretended to be shot and collapsed into her arms, resting my chin on one hand. I laughed so hard my shoulders shook. So petty. Willow, I said. One mistake and you sentenced me to death. After laughing enough, I stood up with the wine glass in my hand and said seriously, let this glass of wine be my apology to you. All right. Willow didn't answer, so I leaned forward and, like a gentleman, lightly clinked her wine glass with mine. Then, under her gaze, I tilted my head back and drank it all. The moment the glass left my lips, a countdown notification sounded in my mind. I lazily sat back in the chair. Meanwhile, Willow's gaze fell on the now empty glass. Suddenly she spoke. Don't lie to me again. I met the eyes she turned toward me, silently swallowing the lump in my throat. I curved my lips into a sincere smile. I promise, from now on, I'll never lie to you again. After a moment of silence, Willow looked away. Her tone softened slightly. Shall we cut the cake? I nodded. Of course. Chapter 13. Willow was unwrapping the cake packaging. Her movements were orderly and pleasing to watch. I said, Willow, after today, I'll be 28. Willow paused while opening the candle box. I know. How many candles do you want? I smiled half a beat late. One is enough. I only have one wish. Thinking about it now, it's kind of funny. I've never been able to forget the wish I made on my 18th birthday. So for my last birthday, I decided to return one to her. The candle was lit. Willow's bright face blended into the candlelight, gradually warm, gradually blurred. I closed my eyes and made a wish. I hope Willow will be happy for the rest of her life. The candle was blown out. George no longer owed Willow anything. I relaxed and smiled. When I opened my eyes, I met Willow's slightly stunned gaze. But the next second, the sudden ringing of her phone pulled her back to reality. Willow answered quickly. Judging from her tone, it was probably Makoto on the other end. After hanging up, Willow stood up. Won't you try the cake? I asked. Willow shook her head and walked toward the door. I slowly followed, stopping 2 steps behind her. How should I say goodbye? Willow slung her bag over her shoulder and, as if sensing something, turned back. I lifted a smile and raised my arms slightly, testing the waters. How about one more hug? Willow looked at me. After a few seconds, she chose to turn away. I watched her back as my arms slowly fell. It was expected, so I wasn't disappointed, just a little regretful. Willow, I called her name one last time. After a 2-second pause, I said softly, I won't be attending your wedding. Willow paused in her steps. She snorted coldly. Suit yourself. Chapter 14. After closing the door, Willow suddenly found herself unable to move forward. She kept thinking about the smile George gave when he opened his arms before she turned away. What did that smile mean? It looked like he had tried very hard to smile, with a hint of exhaustion, but she was certain. There wasn't the slightest trace of asking her to stay. Maybe it really was just as he said. After that dinner, their relationship would return to something normal. Willow tilted her head and took a step, then stopped again. That smile surfaced in her mind once more. The moment she turned around, that smile had looked like a pile of ashes after something had burned out. Cold. One gust of wind and it would scatter away. After thinking for 2 seconds, Willow turned back. I shouldn't have been stingy about a hug, she thought with slight regret. Her fingertip had just touched the doorbell button when the phone in her bag rang. An inexplicable wave of irritation rose in Willow's chest, but when she saw the caller ID, it was as if all emotion was instantly drained from her. At some point, she had begun to feel like a machine running on a programmed routine. Whenever the name Makoto appeared, the program would activate. Just like now, she had to go do the right thing. Chapter 15. Taking the elevator downstairs, getting into the car, fastening the seatbelt. Every step was correct, yet Willow still felt restless. She kept thinking, maybe she should have stayed and eaten the cake with George. No, that still wasn't right. Then what exactly was wrong? The speed on the dashboard kept climbing. Willow didn't even notice. Memories from an hour ago played back in her mind like a lagging video. Frame by frame, disordered, fragmented. George had made only one birthday wish. That wasn't strange. George smiled many times tonight. He wasn't someone who smiled often, but he used to smile at her a lot. That wasn't strange either. George asked her to try his cooking, but she didn't. That wasn't right. George placed their bowls and chopsticks side by side, yet she chose to sit across from him. That also wasn't right. But George asked her to say happy birthday, and she said it. No, she shouldn't have said it. George never celebrated his birthday. The scenes jumped rapidly. What else? The first time George raised his glass to her, she didn't drink. The second time he clinked glasses with her, she still didn't drink. George kept smiling, kept talking. He said, "Back then, you believed everything I said." What else did he say? Suddenly Willow broke free from her memories. Her breathing became rapid as she abruptly turned the car around. At that moment, a blinding beam of white light suddenly flooded her vision. The instant a shrill screech of metal pierced the air, the light vanished. In the blink of an eye, everything fell silent. Darkness swallowed everything around. Only in the distant sky hung a lonely white moon. Moonlight spilled through the window. George slept peacefully. 27-year-old George, looking at the same white moon he had once seen at 17. Slowly, closed his eyes. Chapter 16. After an unknown amount of time, my spirit slowly separated from my body. I could see my sleeping physical form, but I couldn't completely leave. Why is this happening? I asked the glowing sphere in front of me. The system was silent for a moment before answering. Willow came back to save you. What? It continued. But on her way back, there was a small accident. I frowned. Is her life in danger? The sphere shook slightly. She's the female lead. Unless she chooses to end her own life, according to the story's setting, she will live a long life with the male lead. However, it added, because of that moment of hesitation, your reincarnation has been delayed. I laughed softly. After a moment of silence, the glowing sphere gently tapped my nose. George, there's something I never told you. What is it? Before, you asked me whether Willow fell in love with Makoto because the plot forced her to, or because it was her own choice. Now I can tell you, Willow doesn't actually love Makoto. She's only doing what she's supposed to do. But you and her, it's the same as I said before. Neither of you did anything wrong. You were just born into the wrong world, destined to stand on opposite sides. I lowered my head and listened quietly. Willow is the female lead. She enjoys more advantages, but accordingly she is bound by more restrictions. You are actually the choice of her free will. When she realized she could no longer approach you, she killed a part of herself. She can't continue being with you, and she can't truly fall in love with anyone else either. But under the control of the story, she will remain bound to Makoto. I curled my lips slightly. So according to the story, she and Makoto will be happy together, right? The system hesitated. I'm not sure anymore. She tried to come back and save you. That was an instinctive choice that broke free from the plot's control. When she wakes up, she'll definitely feel regret. As for how long she'll suffer, that's hard to say. After a moment of silence, I asked, then what if my existence is completely erased? The system replied, you mean, you want me to erase Willow's memories of you? Yes. The system paused. Erasing events that have already happened in the story would consume a lot of my energy. To be honest, I've accumulated some energy, but I originally planned to use it to send you to a world where you could live a comfortable life. After speaking, the system paused again. It's your decision. I only have enough energy to do one thing, either erase all traces that you ever existed, or send you to be reborn into a good life. I didn't hesitate. Erase it. The glowing sphere trembled and circled around me twice. Let me warn you first, if I don't send you personally, your spirit will enter the random reincarnation pool. That means there's still a chance you could be reborn in this world again. I smiled. I don't think the probability is very high. I don't owe her anything anymore, do I? The sphere gently touched my face. But what if you do? Starting over again would be very painful. I shrugged and smiled indifferently. Then I'll gamble one more time. Chapter 17. Willow's perspective. When I woke up in the hospital, I had forgotten many things. I forgot why I had gotten into a car accident. I also forgot that I already had a fiancé. His name is Makoto. He was my childhood friend. The only thing I remember is that he went abroad to study. But the friends and relatives around me told me that we were about to get married. Makoto sent off the visitors who came to see me, walked to the table, and placed down the flowers. I looked at his back for a moment, thought about it, and decided to be honest. Makoto, I said, in my memory, we're still just friends. He turned around, frowning. Willow, our wedding invitations have already been sent out. I fell silent. He walked over and sat beside the bed. It's all right if you don't remember, he said gently. After we get married, we can slowly recover those memories. I frowned slightly. You don't mind? He smiled faintly. I don't mind. All right. The wedding proceeded as scheduled. Many people came. Wave after wave of congratulations filled the hall, but they still couldn't erase the strange sense of unreality in my heart. Makoto and I stepped onto the stage together. The host briefly told the story of how we had fallen in love. I listened, and I smiled. But when it came time to exchange rings, I hesitated. Instinctively, I looked toward the audience. The banquet hall gradually fell silent. In the corner, a limping man suddenly appeared. The moment our eyes met, he ran. Chapter 18. I stared at his departing back in a daze. The host kept talking, trying to smooth things over. Makoto whispered for me to continue, but my mind was filled entirely with the men I had just seen. The corner was already empty. The panic rising in my chest wrapped around me like creeping vines. I couldn't hesitate any longer. I grabbed the microphone and said a quick apology. Then I lifted my dress and ran toward the direction the men had escaped. His right leg didn't move well. He couldn't have gotten far, ignoring the people trying to stop me. I rushed out of the banquet hall. At the corner of the corridor, that thin figure appeared again. He was about to disappear behind the thick wall. I shouted anxiously, "Sir, wait." He paused for a moment. I quickened my pace. Before the edge of his coat vanished, I stepped in front of him, catching my breath. I felt an inexplicable sense of relief. Thank goodness. I smiled awkwardly. I almost missed you. Chapter 19. He didn't seem surprised to see me. He raised an eyebrow slightly and smiled faintly. Do you need something? Yes, I said. I want to. My mind suddenly went blank. Panic crept back in again. I tapped my head awkwardly. Well, I saw you run away, so I came after you. Yes, I wanted to stop him. Seeing the faint smile in his eyes, I secretly let out a breath of relief and explained. I had a car accident. After waking up, I lost a lot of my memories. I can't remember your name, but since you came today, that means we're friends, right? Could you tell me your name? How do you know I came for you? He interrupted me casually. What if I just came for the free food? I froze, unable to respond for a moment. Then he suddenly smiled at me. You look beautiful today. Go back. Don't make your family worry. I followed his gaze and looked behind me. I don't have any family anymore. Those are Makoto's family. Someone gently pushed my back. Half joking, he urged. Go back, bride. They're coming to get you. I turned back and grabbed his hand. An absurd idea suddenly formed in my mind. Tilting my head, I said, take me with you. He was stunned for a moment, then burst out laughing. Me, I'm a cripple. How am I supposed to run away with you? I couldn't help laughing too, but my eyes drifted toward the spare wheelchair for guests at the end of the corridor. Chapter 20. The wind rushed past my ears. The person in the wheelchair felt so light. Even his voice was light. It felt like a gust of wind could carry him away. Willow, he suddenly said, a lot of people are watching us. I tightened my grip on the handles and snorted. Let them watch. A bride running away from her wedding isn't something you see every day. He chuckled softly. Stop at the bus stop ahead. I nodded and slowed my pace. Stopping at the sign, I watched as he stood up from the wheelchair. Only then did I notice. In this early spring weather of March and April, he was wearing only a white shirt. No wonder his hands were so cold. For some reason, I suddenly had the urge to hug him, but he stepped back and raised his hand to stop me. Don't. I'm a sickly guy. It's bad luck. I frowned. You're sick. Is it serious? Have you taken your medicine? He looked at me with a lazy smile. Don't worry. I'm getting treatment. I let out a breath of relief. Standing in the bus shelter, I cautiously shuffled half a step closer to him. My fingertip accidentally brushed against his hand. It was really cold. I really wanted to hug him. I looked away and edged another small step closer. Before long, a bus pulled up in front of us. Tilting my head, I asked, you're probably taking this one home, right? He raised an eyebrow slightly in surprise. How did you know? I smiled and followed him onto the bus. The driver glanced at us and said, no card, no ride. I hesitated and turned to him. Did you bring your card? He shook his head lightly, looking helpless. I didn't bring mine either. No cash either. What should we do now? As soon as he finished speaking, the driver frowned. No money. Get off the bus. Looking at how you two are dressed, people might think you're filming some idle drama. I ignored the sarcasm in his voice. I was about to take off my earring. Just then, an elderly woman stood up. Just drive, driver, she said. I'll swipe my card for them. I looked at her gratefully and handed over the earring I had taken off. Thank you. Could I trouble you to swipe once more for him too? The old woman paused, then glanced at the space beside me. She sighed and pushed the earring back toward me. All right, I'll swipe again for you. Go sit in the back. I nodded and thanked her. Holding his hand, I walked toward the back and sat in the last row. Outside the window, the streetlights flickered in and out. The gentle spring wind brushed through his dark hair. The scene was beautiful, like a painting. I watched for a long time before slowly looking away. I haven't taken a bus in years, I said. He turned his head toward me and asked with a smile. When was the last time you rode one? I thought for a moment. sinking into memory, tapping my cheek lightly with my finger. I said, "Probably 10 years ago, that long." "Yeah," I said with a faint smile. I vaguely remember that in my second year of high school, every weekend I would take a taxi to the place where he worked part-time. I'd wait until he finished his shift, and then we'd take the last bus home together. The person beside me chuckled softly. "Who was he?" I froze. It felt as though a crack suddenly opened inside my chest. "That's right. Who was he?" He asked again. "Was he important to you?" "Very important," I answered instinctively. "Then you should remember him," he said. My throat tightened for no reason. Lowering my eyes, I said with difficulty, "I'm sorry." A cold fingertip gently pressed against the corner of my eye. "I forgive you on his behalf," he said. I looked up and met a pair of dark, smiling eyes. "Willow," he said softly. "Your eyelashes are really long." Chapter 21. When we arrived at his home, he didn't hurry to go inside. Coincidentally, I didn't want to say goodbye either. The motion sensor light in the hallway flickered on and off, bright, then dark, then bright again. He suddenly spoke. "Do you want to come in for a while?" I nodded immediately. "Okay." He reached into his pocket for the key, but the next second, he frowned. "Oh no, I didn't bring the key." I looked at him speechlessly. "Isn't this a keypad lock?" "Oh, right." His expression relaxed again. I asked, "You remember the code, right?" He shook his head. "I don't." "Why don't you try your birthday?" I froze for a moment, but the mischief in his eyes drew me in. Following his hint, I pressed the numbers one by one. 627. The door opened. I followed him slowly inside. A strange heaviness pressed against my chest. My voice trembled. "Why, is it my birthday?" He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the dining table, picked up a delicate silver lighter, and tossed it lightly in his palm. "This," he said, "was given to me by someone very important. Now I'm giving it to you." He smiled. "Consider it a wedding gift." I took it, the moment I saw the engraving. My heart suddenly tightened. "Watch over George." I had carved those words myself, stroke by stroke. George. His name was George. An indescribable emotion tore through my chest. My mind became a chaotic blur. I couldn't breathe, as if I were drowning. I couldn't clearly see the person in front of me. My voice came out hoarse and trembling. "George." "Yes. How could I forget you?" He smiled. "It's all right. Why must we have known each other before, when our hearts already meet today?" I looked at his smile and frowned in pain. "Is it really all right? Why would it be all right? How could it be all right? George, why are you giving this back to me?" He smiled and said, "Because I'm leaving." My heart trembled. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. In panic, I reached out and hugged him tightly, pleading, "George, George, George." Someone was pulling at my arm, tearing at me desperately. Many voices were speaking at once, loud and chaotic. I held onto him tightly, collapsing to my knees. He said, "Go home. Your family is here to take you." I shook my head in resistance, my voice hoarse with desperation. "But I don't have a family. George. I don't have a family anymore. I only want you." Someone pried at my hands. Someone covered my eyes. Some people shouted. Some people questioned, but no one answered me. Where had George gone? Chapter 22. I was sent to the hospital. They said I was sick, that I had to take medicine, that I needed treatment, but I knew clearly that I wasn't sick. I just wanted to find George. I asked a lot of people, doctors, nurses, my friends, even Alicia. All of them said, "I don't know George." How could that be? I asked back with a bitter smile. Again and again, they thought my illness had grown worse. They wanted to lock me up, inject me, hypnotize me, and force me to forget George. So I ran away. I hid inside that house. During the day, I still went out to look for him. At night, I would return home and waiting for him to come back home. Day after day, year after year. One day I returned home through wind and snow. Facing the mirror, I brushed the snow from the tips of my hair, only to discover that the frostbite at my temples could not be wiped away. I looked at myself in the mirror and let out a self-mocking laugh. It had only been 3 years. I would not give up. If he didn't exist in this world, then I would go to another world. Finally, that force controlling me appeared again. I placed sleeping pills into my mouth one by one and asked, "Where did George go?" After waiting for a moment, it answered, "George is dead." I chuckled softly and said, "Why erase his existence? He requested it himself." I lowered my eyes and remained silent for a moment before saying, "I'm going to find him." That voice laughed and said, "If you die, this world will restart, and you will still remain here." I lifted my eyelids and spoke slowly, word by word. Is restarting such an easy thing? I don't know how much energy a single restart consumes, but what if the number of restarts becomes large enough? When the energy is exhausted and the world collapses, will I still be trapped here? It was silent for a long time before saying, even if you go to his world, what are the chances that you and he will meet again? I swallowed the last pill, threw away the empty bottle, and smiled. What if we do? Extra story. When I attempted suicide for the 9th time, it appeared again. It said it wanted to make a deal with me. I would work for it for 10 years, and it would find someone to take my place in this world. I didn't listen. I kept walking deeper into the sea. It changed its offer and said, add another 5 years to the original terms. When the contract ends, I will send you to the world where he is. Deal. After becoming a system, I used the privileges of my position to watch George. He was born into a wealthy and loving family. He was the youngest of 3. He had an older brother, an older sister, and parents who loved him dearly. George was still very good at fighting, but even if he weren't, it wouldn't matter. I would help him. Every year on his birthday, George would make 3 wishes. My abilities were limited. I could only help him fulfill one of them. When he was 10 years old, George wished for a puppy. The next day when he went out, he picked up a white Labrador. That day he wasn't wearing Leather Jack, yet he still named the puppy Leather Jack. His mother laughed and asked why he chose that name. He replied confidently, because Leather Jack likes Leather Jack. No one understood what he meant, but I did. Watching George grow up little by little. 15 years actually weren't that hard to endure. George was admitted to C University, and my current identity was also that of an ordinary freshman at C University. It was September, and the sunlight was still bright. Green shade was lush. Crowds surged everywhere. Amid the noise and bustle, I found a quiet corner. He stood beneath a tree, tall and slender, straight and elegant. That strikingly handsome face carried an air of carefree confidence. I slowly walked closer and stopped 3 steps away from him. A gentle breeze passed by. He turned around, the corners of his lips lifting slightly. That faint smile was like snowmelt holding a ray of sunlight, flowing through my entire being. Perhaps because I had been staring at him, he raised an eyebrow slightly and walked toward me. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. He reached out his hand. His dark eyes curved into a bright smile, and said, hello, classmate. My name is George.